Elena Moreau adjusted the simple black dress she'd borrowed from her roommate, feeling utterly out of place among the glittering crowd at the Ashworth Foundation's annual charity gala. As a junior architect at a modest firm, she'd only received the invitation because her boss couldn't attend. The opulent ballroom of the Grand Meridian Hotel sparkled with crystal chandeliers and the laughter of Manhattan's elite. She was studying the architectural details of the venue's restored ceiling when a warm, rich voice spoke behind her. "Most people are looking at the champagne and caviar, but you're admiring the craftsmanship." Elena turned to find herself face to face with the most striking man she'd ever seen. Tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair and intense green eyes, he wore his tailored tuxedo with effortless elegance. Recognition dawned. Victor Ashworth, heir to the Ashworth business empire. "The restoration work on those moldings is exquisite," she replied, surprised by her own boldness. "Whoever supervised this project understood both historical authenticity and modern structural needs." Victor's smile was genuine, lighting up his entire face. "I'll tell my architect you said that, though I suspect you could have done better." He extended his hand. "Victor Ashworth, Elena Moreau." His touch sent an unexpected warmth up her arm. "And I doubt that. This is museum-quality work." They talked for over an hour, Victor's initial charm giving way to something deeper as Elena shared her passion for sustainable architecture and urban renewal. When the orchestra began playing, he asked her to dance with a boyish nervousness that contradicted his billionaire confidence. As they swayed together, Elena felt the weight of disapproving stares. Across the room, an elegant older woman with steel-gray hair watched them with obvious displeasure, Victor's mother, Vivian Ashworth. Beside her stood a man who could only be Victor's brother, Harrison, his face twisted in disgust. "They don't approve," Elena whispered, suddenly self-conscious, about her borrowed dress and modest background. Victor's arms tightened around her. "They don't know you yet." His lips brushed her ear as he spoke, sending shivers down her spine. "But I intend to change that." The following weeks became a whirlwind of secret meetings. Victor would appear at her office building after work, sometimes with takeout Chinese food, other times whisking her away to hidden rooftops where they could watch the sunset paint the city golden. Their first kiss happened on one such evening, tender and desperate, as if they both knew they were fighting against impossible odds. "My family thinks you're after my money," Victor confessed one night as they lay entwined in his downtown penthouse, far from his family's prying eyes. Elena traced patterns on his bare chest, her heart aching at the pain in his voice. "And what do you think?" He caught her hand, pressing it flat against his heart. "I think you're the first person who's ever loved me for who I am, not what I represent." His kiss was fierce, possessive, and completely consuming. But the Ashworth family's opposition only intensified. Vivian made pointed comments about fortune hunters at every social gathering. Harrison openly investigated Elena's background, spreading rumors about her modest upbringing. Celeste, Victor's sister, was perhaps the cruelest, once accidentally spilling wine on Elena's dress at a family dinner. The breaking point came when Vivian threatened to remove Victor from the company entirely. Elena found him in his study, head in his hands, torn between duty and love. "Maybe they're right," she whispered, though the words cut like glass. "Maybe I should—" Victor crossed the room in 3 quick strides, cupping her face in his hands. "Don't you dare finish that sentence!" His voice was raw with emotion. "Elena, you are the best thing that has ever happened to me. I won't let them destroy us." 2 days later, he proposed with his grandmother's ring in a quiet ceremony at the Botanical Gardens, witnessed only by the Roses and their unshakable faith in each other. They married the following month in a small chapel, with only Jackson, Blackwood, the family lawyer, as witness. The Ashworth family's absence spoke volumes. But as Victor kissed his bride, Elena knew that their love was worth more than any family's approval. 2 years of marriage had only deepened Elena and Victor's love. Their mornings began with Victor bringing coffee to Elena's home studio, where she worked on her architectural projects while he handled business calls. The converted greenhouse attached to their Hamptons estate had become her sanctuary, filled with blueprints, scale models, and the scent of jasmine that climbed the glass walls. "Mrs. Ashworth," Victor would murmur against her neck as she sketched, his hands sliding around her waist. "You're going to be late for your site visit." "Mr. Ashworth," she'd reply, turning in his arms, "you're being very distracting." Their kisses were still as passionate as their first, but now seasoned with the intimacy of two people who knew each other's deepest secrets. Elena had established herself as a rising star in sustainable architecture, her designs featured in prestigious magazines. Victor supported her career completely, often staying up late to listen to her explain the intricate details of her latest project. In private moments, when the world fell away, they would lie in bed planning their future, a family, a foundation, to support young architects, maybe a quiet retreat in Tuscany. "I want our children to know they're loved for exactly who they are," Elena whispered one evening as Victor's fingers traced lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "They will," he promised, his voice thick with emotion, "because they'll have you as their mother." But outside their private paradise, the Ashworth family's hostility continued unabated. At company gatherings, Vivian would introduce Elena with barely concealed disdain. "This is my son's wife." Harrison made pointed jokes about new money mixing with old, while Celeste's smiles were as sharp as broken glass. The gossip columns were relentless. "Gold digger or true love?" read one particularly vicious headline, accompanied by an unflattering photo of Elena at a charity lunch. Victor found her crying over the article in their bedroom, the magazine crumpled in her fists. "They'll never accept me," she sobbed against his chest. "No matter what I achieve, I'll always be the poor girl who trapped you." Victor's jaw tightened as he read the article. "Pack a bag," he said suddenly. "What?" "We're going away. Just us. Somewhere they can't reach us with their poison." They spent a week in a secluded cabin in Vermont, where Victor seemed lighter somehow, as if the weight of his family name had been lifted from his shoulders. They made love by the fireplace, walked, hand in hand through autumn forests, and talked about everything except the Ashworth Empire. "I've been thinking," Victor said one evening as they soaked in the outdoor hot tub under a canopy of stars, "about what would happen if something happened to me." Elena's blood went cold. "Don't talk like that." "I'm serious, Elena. After that car accident last month, that was just a fender bender. But it made me think. I need to protect you. Properly protect you." His green eyes were intense in the moonlight. "I've been meeting with Jackson about updating my will." "Victor, no, listen to me." He cupped her face gently. "My family, they'd destroy you if they could. But I won't let that happen. Ever." The next morning, Elena watched from the cabin window as Victor took a long phone call outside, his voice too low to hear but his gestures animated. When he returned, he seemed satisfied about something, though he deflected her questions with passionate kisses that made her forget everything else. Upon their return to New York, Elena noticed Victor's increased secretiveness. He had regular meetings with Jackson Blackwood that he claimed were routine business, but she caught glimpses of documents with her name on them. When she asked, Victor would simply smile mysteriously and change the subject. "You're planning something," she accused one night as they prepared for bed. "I'm always planning something," he replied, pulling her into his arms. "Right now I'm planning to make love to my beautiful wife until she forgets how to ask difficult questions." His strategy worked brilliantly. In the warmth of their shared passion, Elena's concerns melted away. Victor worshipped her body with reverent touches, whispered endearments against her skin, and held her afterward as if she were the most precious thing in the world. But even in their most intimate moments, Elena sensed an urgency in Victor's lovemaking, as if he were trying to memorize every touch, every sigh, every whispered, "I love you." When she mentioned it, he claimed it was just his way of appreciating how lucky he was. "Promise me something," he said one night, his voice serious in the darkness. "Anything. Promise me you'll never let them make you feel small. You're extraordinary, Elena. You're brilliant and talented and kind, and you deserve everything beautiful. In this world, you're scaring me." "I'm protecting you," he corrected, his arms tightening around her. "There's a difference." The last conversation they had was about the future. Victor had received an invitation to speak at a business conference in Chicago, and Elena was planning to join him for a long weekend away. "We could see that Frank Lloyd Wright house you've been obsessing over," he teased. "The Robbie house is not an obsession. It's an architectural pilgrimage," she protested, laughing. "My mistake. We'll make a proper pilgrimage then." He kissed her, forehead tenderly. "I love your passion for beautiful things." "I love you," she replied simply. "And I love you, Elena Ashworth, more than life itself." The call came at 3:17 a.m. Elena was pulled from deep sleep by the shrill ring of Victor's phone. Through the fog of exhaustion, she heard a man's voice, formal, apologetic, devastating. "Mrs. Ashworth, this is Dr. Reynolds at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. I'm calling about your husband." The words that followed, massive heart attack, too sudden, nothing they could do, seemed to echo from somewhere far away. Elena's hand went numb, and the phone clattered to the floor. Victor, who had kissed her goodbye just 36 hours earlier, who had texted her from the airport about missing her already, was gone. The next hours passed in a blur of impossible decisions. Flights to Chicago, identification of the body, arrangements for transport home. Elena moved through it all like a sleepwalker, her grief so profound it felt like drowning. She expected the Ashworth family to rally around their shared loss. She was wrong. Elena had barely returned from Chicago when Vivian arrived at the Hamptons' house with Harrison and Celeste in tow. No embraces, no shared tears, just cold, calculating stares. "We need to discuss the arrangements," Vivian announced, settling into Victor's favorite armchair without invitation. "The funeral will be held at St. Patrick's Cathedral. Family only, of course." "Family only?" Elena's voice cracked. "I'm his wife." "You're his widow," Harrison corrected with cruel precision. "There's a difference. The family has standards to maintain." Elena stared at them in disbelief. "You're excluding me from my husband's funeral?" "You'll sit in the back," Celeste added with false sweetness. "It's more appropriate." The cruelty was breathtaking. Elena's knees nearly buckled, but she forced herself to remain standing. "Get out of my house." "Your house?" Vivian's laugh was like ice cracking. "Oh, my dear girl, this has never been your house. You were merely a temporary resident." Within hours, their true intentions became clear. Elena returned from a brief walk to find movers loading her belongings into boxes. Her architectural plans, her personal items, even her clothes, everything thrown together without care. "Stop!" she cried, rushing toward them. "You can't do this!" "We can and we are," Harrison said, appearing beside her with legal documents. "As of now, all Ashworth properties are under family control. You have 1 hour to collect whatever you can carry." "But Victor left me." "Victor left you nothing," Vivian interrupted, her voice sharp with satisfaction. "Did you really think our lawyers would allow him to give away the family fortune to some nobody? The prenup you signed was very specific about what happens in the event of his death." Elena's blood ran cold. She remembered signing papers, but they'd been part of a stack of documents, and Victor had assured her they were just formalities. "I want to see those papers." "You'll see them when it's time," Celeste smirked. "Right now you need to leave." They cut off her credit cards while she stood there. Her phone, on the family plan, was disconnected within the hour. The bank, accounts she thought were joint, were suddenly inaccessible. In less than 24 hours, Elena went from being the wife of one of New York's most powerful men to having nothing but the clothes on her back and a small savings account from her architectural work. The movers were merciless, treating her belongings like garbage. She watched in horror as they bent her carefully rolled blueprints and roughly handled a ceramic vase Victor had given her for their anniversary. When she protested, one of them shrugged. "Lady, we're just following orders. Take it up with the people paying us." Elena found herself standing on the sidewalk with 2 suitcases and a broken heart, watching strangers carry away the physical remnants of her life with Victor. The house where they'd shared their first morning coffee, where he'd proposed a second time just because, where she'd felt safe and loved, it was already being locked up behind her. "You gold-digging little whore," Vivian hissed as she prepared to leave in her Bentley. "Did you really think you could manipulate your way into our family? Victor may have been fooled by your act, but we saw through you from the beginning." "I loved him," Elena whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You loved his money. There's a difference." Elena spent that night in a cheap hotel, clutching Victor's cologne bottle, one of the few personal items she'd managed to save. The Sidas scent of him on the pillow made her sob until she had no tears left. The funeral was the final humiliation. Elena sat in the very last row of the cathedral, surrounded by strangers while the family occupied the front pews like royalty. During the service, Vivian spoke about Victor as if Elena had never existed, describing him as taken too soon before he could start the family he always wanted. The only person who showed Elena any kindness was Jackson Blackwood, the family lawyer. As the crowds dispersed, he approached her quietly. "Mrs. Ashworth," he said formally, though his eyes were kind. "I'm sorry for your loss. Victor was a good man." "Thank you," Elena managed, surprised anyone remembered she existed. Jackson glanced around nervously, then leaned closer. "The will reading is scheduled for next Friday at 10 a.m. My office on 5th Avenue. You'll want to be there." "But they said a lot of things," Jackson interrupted gently. "Just be there, Elena. Trust me." That night, alone in her hotel room, Elena stared at her wedding ring, the only thing of value the family hadn't been able to take. Victor's grandmother's diamond caught the lamplight, casting tiny rainbows on the ceiling. "I don't know how to do this without you," she whispered to the empty room. "They're destroying everything we built, everything we were." Outside her window, New York City sparkled with 1,000 lights, indifferent to her pain. Victor was gone. His family had stripped away everything she'd thought was hers, and she was more alone than she'd ever been. But Jackson's words echoed in her mind. "Trust me." For reasons she couldn't explain, Elena found herself clinging to that small thread of hope. Victor had always been full of surprises. Maybe even in death he had one more left. Elena arrived at Jackson Blackwood's office 15 minutes early, her hands trembling slightly as she smoothed her simple black dress, one of the few decent pieces of clothing she had left. The elegant law firm on 5th Avenue seemed to mock. Her reduced circumstances, its marble floors and crystal chandeliers, a reminder of the world she'd been cast out from. The Ashworth family was already there, arranged in Jackson's conference room like victorious generals preparing to divide conquered territory. Vivian sat at the head of the table in a severe charcoal suit, her gray hair pulled back in a perfect chignon. Harrison lounged confidently in his chair, checking his Rolex with obvious impatience. Celeste filed her nails, a smug smile playing at her lips. "Oh, look," Celeste drawled as Elena entered. "The help has arrived." Elena took the only empty seat, at the far end of the table, as far from the family as possible. She folded her hands in her lap to stop their shaking and kept her eyes fixed on the polished wood surface. "Let's get this over with," Harrison said. "We all know what Victor's will says. The real question is how quickly we can liquidate some assets and get back to business." "Yes," Vivian agreed, her voice crisp with satisfaction. "That unfortunate chapter of our family's history can finally be closed." Jackson Blackwood entered, carrying a thick folder and a sealed envelope. The elderly lawyer's expression was unreadable as he took his place at the head of the table, adjusting his glasses with deliberate precision. "Thank you all for coming," he began formally. "We're here for the reading of Victor Ashworth's last will and testament dated March 15th of this year." Elena's breath caught. March 15th, just 2 weeks after their Vermont trip, after Victor's mysterious phone calls and secret meetings. "Get on with it, Jackson," Vivian commanded. "We have dinner plans." Jackson's mouth twitched slightly. "Of course. Let me begin with the preliminary statements." He cleared his throat and began to read in his measured professional tone. "I, Victor Ashworth, being of sound mind and body, do hereby declare this to be my last will and testament. I revoke all previous wills and codicils made by me." The family members exchanged satisfied glances. Harrison was already calculating numbers on his phone. "To my mother, Vivian Ashworth, I leave my collection of first edition books and my father's pocket watch, with my love and gratitude for the lessons she taught me about the importance of loyalty." Vivian's smile was triumphant. How thoughtful of him. "To my brother Harrison, I leave my yacht Meridian and my wine collection, hoping he finds joy in life's simple pleasures." Harrison grinned. Always knew Vic had good taste. "To my sister Celeste, I leave my art collection and jewelry that belonged to our grandmother, with hopes that she learns the difference between true value and mere appearance." Celeste practically purred with delight. "The Monet alone is worth millions." Elena felt each bequest like a physical blow. These were Victor's most treasured possessions, things he'd shared with her, explained to her, loved. Now they were being distributed to people who had treated their marriage with contempt. Jackson continued reading, his voice growing stronger. "As for the remainder of my estate, this was it." Elena braced herself for the final humiliation, for hearing how Victor's business empire would be divided among his blood relatives, while she received nothing, including all real estate properties, all business interests, all financial accounts, both domestic and international, all stocks, bonds, and investments, and any other assets not specifically mentioned above, I leave entirely and without condition to my beloved wife, Elena Moreau Ashworth. The silence that followed was deafening. Harrison's phone clattered to the table. Celeste's nail file froze mid-stroke. Vivian's face went completely white, her carefully composed expression cracking like a broken mask. "What did you just say?" Vivian's voice was barely a whisper. Jackson looked up from the document, his expression carefully neutral. "I said that Victor left the remainder of his estate to his wife." "That's impossible!" Harrison exploded, jumping to his feet. "There must be some mistake." "There's no mistake," Jackson replied calmly. "The will is quite specific. Mrs. Elena Ashworth inherits all properties, including the Hamptons estate, the Manhattan penthouse, the Colorado ski lodge, and the villa in Italy. She also inherits controlling interest in Ashworth Industries, all subsidiary companies, and approximately $2.3 billion in various accounts." Elena felt the world tilt around her. The numbers didn't seem real. They were too large, too impossible. I don't understand." It's very simple, Jackson continued, now with what Elena could swear was a slight smile. Your husband has made you one of the wealthiest women in America. This is fraud, Celeste shrieked, her composure completely shattered. That little gold digger manipulated him. She forged this will. The will was witnessed by 3 independent parties and has been verified by handwriting experts, Jackson said smoothly. It's completely legal and binding. Vivian had found her voice again, though it shook with rage. We'll contest it. No court in the country will allow this travesty to stand. You're welcome to try, Jackson replied. However, I should mention that Victor anticipated this reaction. He included a detailed explanation of his decision, along with several interesting documents about family behavior patterns. He was quite thorough in documenting why he chose to leave his fortune to someone who loved him rather than those who saw him as a means to an end. Elena's hands were shaking so violently she had to grip the edge of the table. The prenup, she whispered. They said there was a prenup. Ah, yes, Jackson nodded. The prenuptial agreement your husband had you sign. It's quite interesting, actually. Rather than limiting your inheritance, it actually ensures that you receive everything in the event of his death, and that any attempt by his family to interfere would result in additional financial penalties against them. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Harrison was pacing like a caged animal, his face red with fury. Celeste was crying, not from grief, but from pure, frustrated greed. Vivian sat frozen, staring at Elena as if she were seeing a ghost. Victor played us, Harrison said, his voice hollow with realization. He knew exactly what we'd do after he died, and he planned for it. He protected his wife, Jackson corrected, as any loving husband would. Elena felt something breaking, open in her chest. Not pain this time, but something that might have been wonder. He knew, she whispered. Somehow, he knew what you'd do to me. Of course he knew, Vivian spat, though her voice lacked its earlier venom. We never hid our feelings about you. No, Elena said, standing slowly, feeling strength return to her limbs for the first time in weeks. You never did. You showed him exactly who you really were, and he chose accordingly. Jackson extended a thick envelope toward Elena. These are the keys to all properties, along with account information and contact details for your new financial advisors. Everything has been prepared for a smooth transition. Elena took the envelope with hands that were no longer shaking. Inside, she could feel the weight of keys to the home she'd been thrown out of, keys to a future she'd never imagined. This isn't over, Harrison threatened, but his voice lacked conviction. Actually, Elena said quietly, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice, I think it is. She walked toward the door, then turned back to look at the family who had tried to destroy her. They sat in their expensive clothes with their empty hands, their faces reflecting the dawning reality of what they had lost, not just money, but the last chance to honor the memory of someone who had loved them despite their cruelty. I want you to know something, Elena said, meeting each of their eyes in turn. Victor loved you, all of you, even after everything you did to us, to our marriage, to me. He still hoped you might change. He still left you pieces of himself to remember him by. Tears ran down her cheeks, but her voice remained steady. I'm not like you. I won't use this inheritance to hurt you the way you hurt me. But I also won't forget what you showed me about who you really are. Elena walked out of the law office and into the afternoon sunlight, carrying Victor's final gift, not just his fortune, but his absolute, unwavering faith in her worth. For the first time since his death, she felt him with her, protecting her still. 3 months later, Elena stood in the doorway of the Hamptons estate, her estate now, watching as the Ashworth family collected their personal belongings under the watchful eye of security guards she had hired. The irony wasn't lost on her. They were now the ones packing hastily, their expensive items treated with the same careless efficiency hers had received. She had returned transformed. Gone was the broken, grieving widow they had cast out. Elena wore a perfectly tailored cream suit, her dark hair swept into an elegant chignon, diamond earrings, Victor's wedding gift to her, catching the morning light. She looked every inch the billionaire heiress she had become. "Mrs. Ashworth," Harrison approached her with obvious reluctance, his earlier arrogance replaced by careful politeness. "We've finished collecting our things. Thank you for allowing us this time." Elena nodded graciously. "Of course, these were Victor's family heirlooms. They belong with family." The word stung, and Harrison flinched. Family, something they had denied her when she needed it most. Vivian emerged from the main house carrying a small jewelry box, her movements careful and dignified despite the circumstances. She paused in front of Elena, studying her with eyes that held a mixture of respect and regret. "You've changed," Vivian observed. "I've grown," Elena corrected gently. "Victor always said I was stronger than I believed." "He was right about many things," Vivian admitted quietly. It was the closest thing to an apology Elena would ever receive from her, and they both knew it. After the family departed, Elena walked through the house slowly, remembering. In the sunroom where she and Victor had shared countless morning coffees, she found Jackson Blackwood waiting with a warm smile and a stack of documents. "The last of the legal transfers," he explained, setting the papers on the glass table. "Congratulations, Elena. You're now officially in control of one of America's largest business empires." Elena sank into the chair across from him. Victor's chair, she realized with a pang. "Sometimes I still can't believe it's real." "Victor knew you'd feel that way. That's why he left you this." Jackson handed her a sealed letter with her name written in Victor's familiar handwriting. With trembling fingers, Elena broke the seal and unfolded the paper. "My dearest Elena, if you're reading this, then my worst fears have come true, and I'm no longer there to protect you from my family's cruelty. I'm sorry, my love. I'm sorry you had to face their hatred alone. And I'm sorry for leaving you when we had so many dreams yet to fulfill. But I want you to understand something. Every decision I made about my will was about love, my love for you and my faith in the incredible woman I married. You are brilliant, compassionate, and strong in ways that continue to amaze me. You deserve everything beautiful this world has to offer. I know they called you a gold digger. I know they tried to make you feel small and worthless. They were wrong about you in every possible way. You loved me when I was just Victor, not the Ashworth heir. You saw goodness in me that I didn't even know existed. Use this inheritance wisely, my darling. Build something beautiful. Help people the way you've always dreamed of doing. And please, don't let their poison convince you that you don't deserve happiness. Find love again when you're ready. I want you to have the full, rich life we planned. Together. Even if I can't be part of it. You are my greatest gift to this world. Never forget that. All my love. Always and forever. Victor P.S. Jackson has some additional information about a project I started. I think you'll approve. Elena wiped away tears as Jackson placed another folder in front of her. The Victor and Elena Ashworth Foundation for Architectural Innovation, he explained. He established it 3 weeks before his death. $50 million to provide grants for young architects from underprivileged backgrounds. He wanted you to run it. Elena's breath caught. Even in death, Victor had known exactly what would give her life purpose and meaning. He thought of everything. He thought of you, Jackson corrected. Every day, in every decision. He used to say that loving you made him want to be worthy of that love. Over the following months, Elena threw herself into transforming Victor's vision into reality. The foundation became her passion project, funding innovative, sustainable housing projects and providing scholarships to promising young architects. She also quietly began donating to causes Victor had cared about: medical research, literacy programs, homeless shelters. But it was during a foundation gala 6 months after the will reading that Elena's new life truly began. Jackson, who had become a close friend and trusted advisor, approached her with a warm smile. "Elena, I'd like you to meet someone," he said, guiding her toward a distinguished man in his 40s, with kind brown eyes and silver threading through his dark hair. "This is David Chen, the architect behind that sustainable housing project in Detroit you've been funding." David's handshake was firm and warm. "Mrs. Ashworth, your foundation's support has changed everything for our project. We're providing affordable housing for over 200 families now." Elena found herself drawn into easy conversation with David, discovering they shared similar visions for architecture's role in social justice. He spoke passionately about green building techniques and community-centered design, his enthusiasm reminding her of her younger self. "Would you like to see the project sometime?" David asked as the evening wound down. "I'd love to show you what your generosity has made possible." "I'd like that very much," Elena replied, surprised by how natural it felt to smile again. As she watched David leave, Elena felt a familiar presence, not ghostly or supernatural, just the warm certainty that Victor would have approved. He had wanted her to find happiness again, to build a life worthy of the love they had shared. Standing in the ballroom of the Plaza Hotel, surrounded by the quiet elegance that wealth provided, Elena reflected on her journey. The woman who had been cast out like garbage had not only survived, she had thrived. She had taken Victor's final gift and transformed it into something that would touch thousands of lives. The Ashworth family had tried to erase her, but instead they had simply cleared the path for her to become exactly who she was meant to be. Elena Ashworth, philanthropist, business owner, and guardian of Victor's legacy. She touched the diamond necklace at her throat, another gift from Victor, worn now not as a symbol of his wealth, but as a reminder of his unshakable faith in her worth. In trying to destroy her, his family had only proven how right he had been to choose love over blood, character over breeding, and Elena over all of them. As she left the gala that night, Elena smiled at the thought of Victor's reaction to seeing her now, confident, powerful, and finally understanding her own worth. She had learned that the best revenge wasn't cruelty or spite. Sometimes the best revenge was simply living well.